Ever wonder what happened to those Duke boys? Well, they're back, along with the whole gang. Bo, Luke, Cousin Daisy.
Back in the late 70s, the Dukes of Hazzard burst onto TV screens with car chases, country charm, and a whole lot of trouble for the Duke boys. It quickly became one of the most loved shows of its time, and even led to big box office buzz years later. Fans loved the wild stunts, the orange Dodge Charger, and the cast that felt like family. But behind all that fun were real stories. Some hilarious, some dangerous, and others that fans still argue about today. One scene in particular still gets people talking. Some say it's edited, others say it's not. Join us as we take a closer look at the show, the stars, the movie, and the jaw-dropping behind-the-scenes truth. A show that defined a generation. Created by G.Y. Waldron, The Dukes of Hazzard, which is an American action comedy, quickly became one of the biggest shows on CBS. It ran for 7 seasons from 1979 to 1985, with a total of 147 episodes. Every Friday night, fans tuned in to see the Duke boys, Bo and Luke, tear through the dusty roads of Georgia in their famous car, the General Lee. The show wasn't just another comedy. It had action, heart, and that good old Southern charm. It was so popular that at one point it ranked second only to Dallas, which aired right after it. The story followed 2 cousins on probation for moonshine running. Because of that, they couldn't carry guns, so they relied on bows and arrows, and their wits, to outsmart corrupt county officials. Boss Hogg, the greedy commissioner, and Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane were always after them, but the Duke boys somehow always managed to escape. Living with their cousin Daisy Duke and Uncle Jesse, the family became the symbol of loyalty, mischief, and fun. The show's charm wasn't just in the car chases and crashes, it was in the warmth of that family bond. The Dukes of Hazzard took inspiration from a 1975 movie called Moonrunners, which G.Y. Waldron also created. Many characters and storylines came straight from that film, and it didn't stop there. The success of the series led to 4 movies: The Dukes of Hazzard Reunion in 1997, Hazzard in Hollywood in 2000, The Dukes of Hazzard in 2005, and The Beginning in 2007. But as fun as the show was to watch, it didn't always get love from the critics. Tom Shales from The Washington Post once said, "Within 5 minutes, the program is out of breath from pandering so pantingly to its audience." Still, despite critics calling it simple, the audience couldn't get enough. As Danny Graydon from Empire put it, "Today, Hazzard's considerable charm endures, even if the sheer predictability is wearing." That charm kept millions watching. But as time went on, fans started discovering bloopers, behind-the-scenes secrets, and mistakes that made the show even more fascinating to look back on. The stars, the charm, and the timeless appeal. There's something truly timeless about the Dukes of Hazzard. It wasn't just about cars and chases. It was about a feeling, a good, clean, family-friendly escape that everyone could enjoy. The show had minimal swearing, light humor, and characters that felt like neighbors you actually knew. For many fans, Daisy Duke was one of the biggest reasons to tune in. Her charm, confidence, and iconic look made her a pop culture phenomenon. Her posters hung in bedrooms across America, right next to stars like Farrah Fawcett. The show had a spirit that connected people. Whether you were out riding your bike during the day or rushing home before 8 p.m., everyone wanted to catch the latest adventure of Bo and Luke. It was more than entertainment. It was a shared memory. The sound of the General Lee's horn, the laughter between scenes, and the warmth of Uncle Jesse's advice created something unforgettable. And even decades later, that nostalgia hasn't faded. People still remember where they were when they first heard that familiar theme song. That's the kind of power the Dukes of Hazzard had. But what fans didn't always see were the funny and surprising things happening behind the scenes. Stories that added even more life to a show that was already full of it. And some of those stories are almost too good to be true. The secrets behind the scenes. One of the most interesting behind-the-scenes stories involves Sorrel Book, who played the unforgettable Boss Hogg. He was one of TV's most entertaining villains, greedy, dramatic, and funny all at once. But what most fans didn't know is that his contract had a special clause. It stated that Boss Hogg could never be involved in drug dealing or murder. That might sound strange, but it showed how much the show wanted to stay family-friendly. They wanted Boss Hogg to be funny and sneaky, not dark or evil. Book played the part perfectly. He mixed humor and heart in a way that made Boss Hogg one of TV's most iconic bad guys. And here's another secret. Book wasn't actually as big as Boss Hogg looked. To create that round, exaggerated look, he wore padding under his suit. It was all part of his commitment to the role, and it worked perfectly. Another unforgettable detail comes from the General Lee's famous Dixie horn. Believe it or not, that sound wasn't part of the original plan. During filming in Atlanta, the producers heard another car pass by playing that same tune. They loved it so much that they chased down the driver, paid him for the horn, and used it in the show. The funny part? They later discovered that the horn could have been bought from any auto parts store for a lot less. At first, it was only used in the first 5 episodes, but once filming moved to the Warner Brothers lot, they started adding the sound in post-production. It became one of the show's most iconic features. And then there's John Schneider, who played Bo Duke. In interviews, he admitted that he lied about his age to get the role. He told producers he was 24 when he was actually just 18. To make his story believable, he showed up for the audition wearing jeans and a t-shirt, carrying a 6-pack of beer, and using a Southern accent, even though he was from New York City. He even told them he graduated from the Georgia School of High Performance Driving. The twist? That school didn't even exist. But they bought it, Schneider later joked in an interview. And the truth is, he really did have driving skills. He could handle the General Lee like a pro, sliding it around corners and leaving clouds of dust behind. Even though the studio didn't let him perform the big jumps or dangerous stunts, it's clear he could have pulled them off. The shorts that changed everything. Catherine Bach's role as Daisy Duke became one of the most iconic in TV history, and not just because of her acting. Her famous cut-off denim shorts, known today as Daisy Dukes, almost didn't make it onto the Dukes of Hazzard. In a 1996 interview on E! True Hollywood Story, Catherine revealed that when she first wore those shorts, network executives panicked. They thought they were way too revealing for television. After going back and forth, they allowed her to wear them, but only if she wore pantyhose underneath to prevent any wardrobe accidents. The funny part? The pantyhose didn't hide anything. In fact, they made her long legs stand out even more. That unexpected outcome made Catherine a 1970s TV symbol. The shorts, originally meant to be modest, turned into a lasting fashion trend. Even today, many girls wear that style of shorts and call them Daisy Dukes, without even knowing who Daisy Duke was. That's how big of an impact she made. And while her style got most of the attention, it was her natural charm and presence that made fans fall in love. Catherine later explained, "The character is a conglomeration of many people I know. She is half the wildest girl I ever knew in high school. She is part of a couple of girls I was real close to in Georgia. She's a lot of Dolly Parton, and she's a lot of me when I was a waitress. She is independent, she is physical, and she can do anything the guys can do." Before getting the role, the producers were actually looking for someone who looked like Dolly Parton. They wanted big blonde hair, curves, and an eye-catching look. Catherine wasn't exactly what they pictured, but she nailed the audition. She was hired the same night. The connection to Dolly Parton didn't stop there. Early episodes of the show hinted that Daisy wanted to be a singer, and in the pilot, it's even said she knows all of Dolly's songs. That blend of fun, strength, and a little Southern sparkle made Daisy Duke unforgettable. But not everything on the show was perfect. Some moments slipped through the cracks, and one small blooper involving Daisy's name still surprises fans today. A name slip, a missing scene, and a lot of emotion. In the episode State of the Country, there's a funny mistake that only the sharpest viewers would catch. Just as the episode wraps up, Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane accidentally calls Daisy by the name Kathy. It's a quick slip, right before she hands him a gun, and most people probably didn't even notice. But for fans who know the show inside and out, it's one of those little bloopers that adds charm to the series. Moments like that show how even a well-loved show like the Dukes of Hazzard wasn't always perfect, and that's what made it feel real. But there was another moment that fans never got to see at all, and it left a deeper mark. Actor John Schneider, who played Bo Duke, was the biggest fan of the show among the cast. When the series ended in 1985, it hit him hard. The final episode that aired opening night at the Boar's Nest showed the characters laughing and hugging as Boss Hogg made a surprise stage comeback. But that's not how the last day on set really ended. According to Schneider, the final scene they filmed was never aired, not even on the DVDs. In that lost moment, Bo and Luke sat in the General Lee outside the Boar's Nest, sharing one last laugh. When the cameras stopped, Schneider stayed in the car and cried. Unlike the televised ending where we all hugged at the Boar's Nest, I remember saying, "Well, that's a wrap." Then the rear projection screen went blank, and I cried like a baby behind the wheel of that engineless General. It was an emotional goodbye for him and for fans, too. But the love didn't die. When reruns came back on TNN 11 years later, the fan base returned stronger than ever. That passion even led to new movies and brought in a whole new generation of viewers who wanted to ride along with Bo, Luke, and Daisy. But one familiar voice kept everyone connected to the show's heart, and he had a few stories of his own. Waylon Jennings, his mama, and the missing face. Waylon Jennings was more than just a country music star. He was the voice of the Dukes of Hazzard. As the show's narrator and the man behind its theme song, Good Old Boys, Waylon's sound became part of the show's soul. The song became a huge hit, reaching #1 on the country charts in 1980 and later becoming a platinum ringtone in 2007. Waylon once said it was one of the easiest songs he ever recorded, but it made a lasting impact. His music helped set the mood for every episode. But even with all that, Waylon himself was never shown on the show. Not really. Every week his mom watched the Dukes of Hazzard hoping to catch a glimpse of her son, but all she ever saw were his hands playing guitar in the opening credits. That led Waylon to joke about it in the full version of the theme song, where he added the lyric, "You know my mama loves me, but she don't understand they keep a-showing my hands and not my face on TV." Fans loved that line, and it was true. Finally, in 1984, Waylon made a guest appearance as himself in the episode Welcome, Waylon Jennings, giving his mother and the fans the moment they'd been waiting for. But the gifts didn't stop there. As a thank you for his work, the show's producers gave Waylon his own version of the General Lee. It was the real deal, bright orange, with the Confederate flag on the roof and the 01 on the doors. In his book Waylon, he wrote, "Even today, when I look out on my driveway and see General Lee, the orange Dodge Charger they gave me with the rebel stars and bars painted on its roof and a big 01 bullseyeing the door, it makes me laugh. Great car for eluding a sheriff." Years after his death, that very car resurfaced in 2016 on eBay. It came with personal letters and documents, and the asking price was $77,000. It was more than just a car. It was a piece of the Dukes of Hazzard history. And speaking of the General Lee, that car has a wild history all its own. The car that became a legend. The General Lee wasn't just a car. It was the heart of the Dukes of Hazzard. That orange 1969 Dodge Charger became the face of the show. It had the Confederate flag on the roof, General Lee printed on the sides, and the number 01 painted on the doors. Fans loved everything about it. But behind the scenes, keeping the General Lee on screen wasn't easy. The show destroyed a lot of cars during filming. Somewhere between 256 and 321 Chargers were used and mostly wrecked. Dodge had already stopped making the Charger, so finding replacements became a huge challenge. Sometimes producers would stop random people on the street just to ask if they could buy their car. That's how important the General Lee was to the show. In the first 5 episodes filmed in Georgia, the car even had a checkered flag behind the rear window, but that had to be dropped because it was too hard to copy again and again. The car's name came from Confederate General Robert E. Lee, but it was also inspired by real-life moonshine runners who used fast cars to outrun the law. Their own vehicle was called Traveler, based on Robert E. Lee's horse. That was almost the name of the car in the show, but the producers went with General Lee because it sounded stronger. And here's a fun bit of trivia. There's one episode where the General Lee doesn't appear at all. It's the third episode, Mary Kay's Baby. That's the only time in the whole series where the car is missing. That just goes to show how much the General Lee meant to the show and to the fans. Even now, decades later, it's still one of the most recognizable cars in TV history. The plot hole. One of the biggest storylines in the Dukes of Hazzard was that Bo and Luke Duke were on probation. It was a key part of the show and even explained why the cousins couldn't leave Hazzard County legally. But as it turns out, that detail created one of the biggest plot holes in the series. When actors Tom Wopat and John Schneider, who played Bo and Luke, left the show at the beginning of Season 5 because of a salary dispute, the writers had to think fast. Instead of ending the show, they introduced two new characters, Coy Duke, played by Byron Cherry, and Vance Duke, played by Christopher Mayer. The show explained Bo and Luke's sudden absence by saying they had gone off to race professionally in NASCAR. But here's the problem. If they were still on probation, how could they travel across the country to compete in races? That's something the show never addressed. Fans noticed right away and pointed out the inconsistency. It's one of those classic TV moments where the writers hoped no one would ask too many questions. Still, even with that big oversight, the spirit of the show never changed. Fans remained loyal, and when Tom and John eventually returned, the audience welcomed them back with open arms. But not everything about the show's production was about mistakes. Some behind-the-scenes moments were just heartwarming, like one involving Roscoe's loyal sidekick, Flash the Basset Hound. Flash first appeared in the episode Enos Straighty to the Top and became an instant fan favorite. The dog was actually adopted from a Los Angeles pound, proving that even a rescue pup could become a star. On set, actor James Best, who played Roscoe, had a clever way of getting Flash to focus on the camera. He used small pieces of hot dog to grab her attention. After every good take, Flash got her treat as a reward. Fans adored their bond, and it gave the show an extra layer of warmth. But Flash wasn't the only unexpected star of the show. Sometimes even random people ended up on screen without realizing it. Love rumors and real-life bonds. If you look closely, you'll notice that the Dukes of Hazzard wasn't just fun for the audience, it was fun for the people who worked on it too. During outdoor filming, curious bystanders sometimes gathered to watch, and a few of them accidentally ended up in the background of scenes. Fans later spotted these surprise extras and shared screenshots online. It's funny to think how random people became part of TV history without even trying. But that wasn't the only time viewers noticed small slip-ups. In some episodes, the production reused stock footage of Bo and Luke driving the General Lee. This led to some funny mistakes, like Bo being shown behind the wheel one moment, and then suddenly Luke driving in the next shot. It wasn't intentional, but fans with sharp eyes caught it. Little things like that became part of the show's charm. And of course, whenever a show has a cast with such great chemistry, people start wondering, was there any real romance behind the scenes? Catherine Bach, who played Daisy Duke, answered that question once and for all. When asked if she ever dated Tom Wopat or John Schneider, she said, "Let me say this. As much as those guys were the most charming friends and men on the planet, and women all over just adored them, they were really like my brothers. As much as I appreciate them, there's no way I would be, as you say, hooking up with them. Just look at your brother or whoever is really close to you and go, can I do this?" It's a no. Her answer made it clear that their friendship was real and built on mutual respect. They were like family, both on and off the screen. And that sense of closeness didn't fade even after the show ended. Decades later, John Schneider reflected on their bond in 2014, saying, "We're a family still after all these years, which is very unusual. Shows have a tendency to end when they're over. The Dukes of Hazzard has not ended for the fans, and it has not ended for the cast or the crew, and I'm very proud to be a part of that." But even with all the love and nostalgia surrounding the show, not everything about the Dukes of Hazzard has aged perfectly. In recent years, one symbol from the series has sparked strong reactions and heated debate among fans and critics alike.
The flag that sparked a debate.
Over the years, the Dukes of Hazzard has been loved by millions of fans around the world. But one part of the show continues to cause debate. The Confederate flag painted on the roof of the famous car, the General Lee. The 1969 Dodge Charger became an icon, but the flag on top of it has been seen by many as a symbol of slavery and racism. The Confederate States of America used the flag during the Civil War from 1861 to 1865, and according to the Anti-Defamation League, it later became a symbol linked to white supremacy. Because of that, the flag's use in the show has been criticized in modern times. In a 2020 interview with The Hollywood Reporter, John Schneider and Tom Wopat, who played Bo and Luke Duke, spoke about the controversy. Schneider, now 60, said, "I have never had an African American come up to me and have any problem with it whatsoever. The whole politically correct generation has gotten way out of hand." Wopat added, "The situation in the country has obviously changed in the last 40 years. I feel fortunate to be living in a time when we can address some of the injustices of the past, but the car is innocent." For the actors, the flag was never meant to be a political symbol. It was just part of the show's design. Schneider also said, "The Dukes of Hazzard was a unifying force. Mom, Grandma, everyone wanted to watch it together. But who benefits from division? The show has been shot down unfairly." The series aired from 1979 to 1985, later inspiring a 2005 movie starring Seann William Scott, Johnny Knoxville, and Jessica Simpson. But times have changed, and what once felt like harmless fun now draws different reactions. A creator's view and the changing times. When asked about removing the flag from the car using digital editing, Ben Jones, who played Cooter, said it would make no sense. "That wouldn't please anybody," he explained, "because after 40 years seen all over the world in thousands of jigsaw puzzles on model cars and lunchboxes, the General Lee, by not having the flag there, would just draw attention to itself. That would be like taking the S off of Superman's chest." Jones believed the car had already become a part of history, and changing it now would only erase what people remembered. Still, the controversy affected the show's future. In 2015, TV Land pulled all reruns of the Dukes of Hazzard from its lineup, and Warner Brothers announced they would no longer sell merchandise featuring the Confederate flag. Around the same time, major changes were happening across America. NASCAR banned the display of Confederate flags at races, and Mississippi voted to remove the Confederate emblem from its state flag after 126 years. G.Y. Waldron, the show's creator, also shared his view. He said he supported the Black Lives Matter movement, but explained that the flag's inclusion was never meant to be racist. "I had relatives fight on both sides of the Civil War, and we honored both the American and Confederate flags," Waldron said. "No one even connected the Confederate flag with slavery. It was simply a part of our Southern culture." His words showed that for the creators, the flag was a reflection of where they came from, not a message of hate. But as protests grew across the U.S. after George Floyd's death, many people began re-examining symbols of the past, including the Confederate flag. What once seemed harmless now carried a very different meaning. And for the stars of the Dukes of Hazzard, that meant defending the show's legacy while acknowledging that times and perspectives had changed. The legacy and a hopeful possibility. Even though the show ended decades ago, the Dukes of Hazzard still holds a special place in television history. Its blend of humor, adventure, and heart made it one of the most beloved shows of the late 70s and early 80s. But the passage of time has brought some losses that fans still feel today. Sorrel Book, the actor behind the unforgettable Boss Hogg, passed away in 1993. Waylon Jennings, whose voice narrated the show and whose music became its heartbeat, died in 2002. Denver Pyle, the wise and caring Uncle Jesse, passed in 1997, and James Best, the hilarious and kind-hearted Roscoe P. Coltrane, died in 2015. Their absence is deeply felt, but their legacy continues every time someone hums the theme song or sees the General Lee fly through the air. And for fans wondering if the story could ever return, there's still a bit of hope. Catherine Bach, the woman who made Daisy Duke a household name, recently talked about the idea of a reboot. When asked if she'd ever come back to play Daisy again, she said, "Well, you know, shows are a mystical thing at best, because you never know what's going to work and how things are going to click." She explained that making a successful reboot isn't just about the idea. It's about execution, timing, and chemistry. "There's got to be a good writer," she said. "It can't just be writing on an idea, you have to execute that idea. So yeah, if everything comes together. Of course, her words gave fans a mix of realism and optimism. She didn't promise anything, but she didn't shut the door either. Catherine ended her thoughts with a hopeful note. I'm still here, the guys are still here. It would be great, but I don't know. Her words remind fans that while time moves on, the love for the Dukes of Hazzard never fades. The show wasn't just a piece of television, it was a part of people's lives. And as long as that bond stays strong, there's always a chance the Duke boys and Daisy might ride again. If the Dukes of Hazzard ever returns, do you think that General Lee should keep the flag on its roof? Or is it time for a change? And would you still watch a reboot if that iconic symbol was removed completely? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.